Okay, so I am going to give you some comments on the text.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it. So you've been working on the text that you previously submitted, and I can see that, so
Yeah.
that's good. However, in the introduction, are you recording this conversation?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're taking notes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. It is. It's not sufficiently clear what your topic is and what your question is.
Yeah. Maybe I write this first, and I'll just.
Yeah, because it's now like you talk about you talk about your concept of choice, the filter bubble.
Yeah.
And you talk about news consumption of political news, and then you talk about Brexit, but you're putting different sort of topics on the map, but what is your question? What is this dissertation about?
Yeah.
What's your perspective? Like, all that is not clear. And what's especially worrying is that on page, you also need to add page numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But on page 3, you say, this dissertation takes the political event of Brexit as a study case. But as a case of what? Or as a case for understanding what? Like you say it's about Brexit, but we have no understanding why focusing on Brexit. How are you going to connect it to the filter bubble?
Yeah.
What can we learn by studying Brexit about? Like you say, this major political event indicates that the country is divided and groups are opposed. Well, why is that relevant? So you need to, in your introduction, clearly connect the filter bubble discussion with the Brexit phenomenon and make it clear how your dissertation is going to use the analysis of Brexit in order to develop our understanding of the filter bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I did bad connection.
Yeah. And then also on that same page, you discuss literature that does make those connections. So you talk about the Vicario study, which shows attitude variation between the two bubbles.
Yeah.
But again, is that what are you gonna analyze polarization in your study?
Maybe just as an impact of the filter bubble.
Yeah, but you can't study the impact of. Oh, you mean this literature?
Yeah.
You mean that the relevance of the concept?
Yeah, I just want to talk about. Maybe I put too much on this.
Well, then you need to say, the concept of the filter bubble has already been used in the study of Brexit reporting and news.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the connection just isn't clear.
Yeah. And I think maybe the last part of my literature review is more concerned of my topic. So I should because after the data analyze, I can maybe the last part in the literature review may be as the basement for anything else of the data analysis in the next section.
Yeah, but you need to introduce what is your topic and what is your question, and you haven't done that.
Yeah.
You just said, I'm studying Brexit, and here there is some research about filter bubbles in relation to Brexit. But I don't know what you are going to do in your dissertation. How are you going to connect Brexit and the debate about filter bubbles? Because what you say when you go on, this dissertation explores the role of social media platforms in the formation of filter bubbles, especially in major political events. I mean, that's a huge topic.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, you know, that's a whole field of study that you, so that is not specific enough.
Yeah.
Because when you then say, yes, I'm going to focus on the significance of the filter bubble and illustrate that it does have an important impact on people's opinion, like that's way too ambitious. You cannot in a dissertation demonstrate the impact of the filter bubble on people's opinion. You can say, I'm going to use a Twitter analysis of Brexit in order to explore or examine in more detail how filter bubble dynamics may have been at work.
Yeah.
But you just have to be very, very specific. And if you say to call attention to the far-reaching impact of the filter bubble in people's political life, like you can say, you know, I'm concerned, or this dissertation emerges from my concern with the impact that the filter bubble has on people's political life.
Yeah.
But again, you need to elaborate. What do you mean political life? Do you mean people's role as citizens, or what do you mean? So you need to be precise, but you also need to be careful.
Yeah.
Because you cannot just take it as given that the filter bubble has a far-reaching impact.
Maybe the impact is mainly on the citizen discourse, and I will introduce what is the citizen discourse in some literature. Yeah, it's.
Well, I would steer away from the language of impact, because that's something that you measure, and I don't think you are equipped to measure that. Now, moving on to the literature review, like it's fairly, you know, it's you engage with relevant literature and you demonstrate an adequate understanding of that literature. So I think it's, you know, developing, but still the logic of how you present things is not clear.
Yeah.
Because you talk about, for instance, about personalized recommendation systems on page 9.6, sorry. And then you say, this dissertation does not give a more specific introduction to personalized recommendation systems.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it's not relevant, don't discuss it. If it is relevant, do show why it is relevant to the discussion of filter bubbles in social media. The other issue is that when you present the literature, you sort of make a zigzags where, you know, you suddenly start talking about filter bubble and the concept of democracy, and then you give like 2 sentences about democracy, but you don't define democracy. And then you say, so from the perspective of the transformation of the digital society in the public sphere, Hadia suggests that some of the persecutions on social media may be influenced by the personalization of social networks. Users in the filter bubbles created by social media platforms isolate themselves from different ideologies. Like, then we're talking about democracy, and then suddenly we're talking about social media.
Yeah.
Like, what is this about? Is this about democracy? Is this about the role of social media? Like, you need to maintain a consistent focus. And if you want to talk about democracy, which is of course relevant, but then you need to have a separate paragraph that is about democracy, where you also show how difficult it is to define democracy, or you indicate something about what's your definition of democracy, or your understanding about it. I mean, is this about what happens in elections? Is this about the quality of public debate? Like, what is this about?
But I choose several perspectives. I mainly want to just show the development of the filter bubble concept, because the first one who tell us this, he didn't focus on so much perspectives.
Yeah, but if you say on page 6, but I focus on the association between filter bubbles and social media platforms, and then you go on to talk about democracy, it's like, is the association between filter bubble and social media primarily an association that has to do with democracy? Like, it needs, the reader needs to understand why you are discussing these different aspects. What's the logic?
Yeah.
And if you say there, I focus on the association between filter bubble and social media, then in the next paragraph you'll need to say, well, it was really in the study and intellectual debate about social media that the concept of the filter bubble gained salience.
Okay.
You need to make that transition so that it's clear. If you say, okay, it's about social media, well, how then is it about social media, rather than suddenly talking about democracy?
Okay.
Yeah? So just read your own text as if you are a reader, and ask yourself, does this make sense? And do I understand why this is being discussed now?
Okay.
Because I just keep reading and reading, and I just see a sort of enumeration of different contributions to the literature. And then the end of the section of the filter bubble, you say, the reaction behavior of users has prompted social media platforms to use personalized recommendation systems to recommend information that is similar to their views. Then I think, well, first of all, you said you were not going to engage with recommendation systems, and now you're talking about it again. So why did you previously say that you won't engage with it?
Okay.
You see? And then also, so what are you going to do? So are you going to also, is this a dissertation about recommendation systems, but you just said it isn't? I mean, something that you say in the last sentences of a section, that is generally taken to indicate what your own focus will be.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just confusing. So then in the discussion between the similarity and difference between filter bubble and echo chamber, it's still not sufficiently clear for me as a reader why you care so much about that difference.
Okay.
So you just need to keep telling the reader why that matters.
Okay.
And also, I think you give a very clear description when you say, the echo chamber refers to the overall phenomenon, while the filter bubble is the result of personalized algorithms.
Yeah.
Make that bold.
Okay.
And then, So if this is it, let's see, where is it here? Like this, make this bold, and then. So why is this difference? Why does it matter? How do you relate to it in your further study? Because when you then go on, you start again connecting them. You say the filter bubble is a phenomenon that restricts diversity. It can be seen as a special echo chamber. So now you're connecting them again.
Yeah.
So you're continuously going like this, but to what point?
Oh, okay.
So and also you seem to make empirical claims, very strong empirical claims. There's no need for you to make a claim that's this strong, because how do you know that? Based on what do you know that? That's not your job. You need to do a £2 million empirical study to be able to say that. Yeah? Yeah, so overall you just need to, maybe you can just explain to me now, why do you care so much about that difference between...
Because I didn't see too much in previous literature. They didn't talk about the difference, and I think maybe we should pay attention to the difference, and we can focus on the digital filter bubble, and to see how they work in the social media, because many social media they are talking about just the echo chamber. So I want to say that.
Yeah, well, say that.
Okay.
So in the introduction, just say immediately. And why does the Brexit case help in that regard?
Because first, these cases very so close to our life, and from this case maybe we can see the filter bubble can make just through the case we can see how a filter bubble work, because I have in the next section we can see that from the data.
But that's too general. So what is it specifically about the filter bubble that we can understand by studying the Brexit case?
Maybe we can see the polarization in the in people's tweets about the Brexit.
Can you say that again?
Maybe we can see from the data the polarization.
The polarization?
Yeah, the polarization on the people's tweets about the Brexit.
And how would seeing polarization in Brexit tweets help us understand filter bubbles better?
Because because I think the polarization is caused by the filter bubble.
Yeah, but I think you need to get to the specifics. There's a huge literature about filter bubbles. There's a huge literature about Brexit. There's a pretty big literature about Brexit debates and social media. How are you specifically advancing the understanding of, for instance, the relation between filter bubbles and polarization. So you need to be very specific. You cannot just say, oh, I have these ideas about filter bubbles and they apply to Brexit, because that's not a dissertation. You need to show how studying that Brexit debate on Twitter can help us understand something specific about filter bubbles that we didn't already know. Yeah. So, in the methodology, it's clear again there when you say the aim is to visually and specifically explain the role of social media platforms in the formation of filter bubbles. Like, that's way too general. You cannot do that on the basis of a data analysis of Twitter. And then the focus by making it really about, start your discussion focusing on TCAT, that makes sense. But you make statements like you say, to answer the research question in this dissertation, the researcher selected the top 10 reference links. What's your research question? So you need to actually mention what is your question. And also you need to prepare that question in the literature review. So why that question? And then you refer to 2 trained researchers that do the coding. Like, who are they? This is supposed to be your own work. So
if only one coder can do, or we need 2 coders, or?
Well, I would say it's very important that it is your work that is assessed in this dissertation. So I would make sure that you just do the coding yourself.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then, if you want to situate this in relation to issue mapping, you mentioned specifically issue network analysis, but I don't yet know enough of what you've done, why you mention issue network analysis, but it sounds more like you're doing content analysis. Yeah. So then you would have to situate it in relation to issue mapping, not issue network analysis. Yeah? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Can I show you? I have some
Because unfortunately we're out of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there questions you want to put on email?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you're working with James on the Twitter data?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is it working out? You feel?
Yeah, I think James just come back.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
comes back only next week, right?
And I will discuss this with him tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow?
I want to have an appointment with him.
But he's on leave, so I don't think you can meet tomorrow.
But he
Yeah?
just answered my emails.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
okay. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as I said to the other if you have specific questions, email me, but make them specific,
Okay.
because then I can answer.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good luck.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Bye.
You too.